wasn't able to join us tonight, we'll have it on the website. So if you are talking to somebody and you could let them know, that would be great. We're going to ask you to please mute yourself. This is a professional meeting, and we're certainly going to have an opportunity to answer the questions that you have if we're able to, right? If we have the information to provide it accurately. So again, thanks for being with us. I'm Randy Russell, superintendent here at Freeman. Just a couple minutes ago, we concluded our board meeting. We approved the budget for this next year. We had our regularly scheduled board meeting at 6 o'clock. We have the community meeting at 7, and want to just share with you the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide everyone with an update and to be able to answer your questions about what we're kind of working on and looking for as we think about the beginning of the school year. So we're up to 100 participants. Some people may not be able to get in. Again, if you'd please let them know that this is recorded, it'll be on the website. We'd sure appreciate it. So a couple of things before we get started. Just in conversations with the board, the staff, our leadership team, obviously the paramount responsibility for us as a district is to ensure a safe learning environment for our students and our staff. And we're going to continue to keep that as our #1 priority, moving forward to the start and through this school year. Please mute yourself. If you just joined the call, please mute yourself. Thank you. So I want to take you through just a couple of minutes about kind of where we've been, and then I want to talk for a few minutes about kind of where we are, and then we're going to spend the majority of the time really talking about and thinking about, kind of where we're headed. So you're going to get a chance in a little while here to use the chat to ask questions. We'll see if there's some themes and make sure that we have time. We're scheduled to go right till 8 o'clock. So a little bit about the past. Obviously, for those of you that were here with us this last spring, you know that we got thrown a serious curveball, and I just want to just comment and commendate, the staff and our students and our families for leaning in and really working together collaboratively from March until the end of the year. It certainly wasn't what we expected, that the end of the school year was going to be like, but I'm just really proud, and I know that the board is really proud of our staff and the job that they did. I've never seen our classified staff work so closely together to be able to provide services for students. I've never seen teachers work as hard as they have in my 32-year career. And I just, it wasn't perfect, but I'll tell you, we got a lot of things right. And we also learned a lot about what's working, what are things that are working well in Freeman, and what are some things that we can still improve on. And there are some things that we can improve on, and we will improve on prior to the start of this school year, regardless of what it looks like. So just real positive and thankful for everybody chipping in. We purposefully, about the middle of June, when OSPI put out their 55-page guideline on the return to the school year, we decided as a group, and that included the classified leadership union, the teachers leadership union, our board and leadership team, and myself, that we were going to really just kind of read the tea leaves of July. If you've seen any school district that's put a plan together in July, unfortunately, because of things changing, that you're gonna see a revision within a day or 3 days or 5 days. And we didn't put a plan together out in July because I didn't want to come back and apologize to all of you and say that basically, sorry, this is changing. So we wanted to kind of take a break, let people refresh, see what's happened. A lot has happened in July. And unfortunately, some of the information and some of the details, around the numbers, around the science behind some of the decisions is not going in the direction, that we all thought back in April and May when we were told that wait till the summer, things are going to heat up, people are going to get outside and the numbers are going to drop. And so, we're just continuing to watch, what is happening. And now we're at the end of July. And so I want to walk you through a couple things as we get ready to think about the next month and what the school year is going to look like and could look like for us here in just 1 month's time. The very first thing is that I want to walk you through that there's kind of 4 levels that the school district uses in terms of decision making. The first one is state law. So whether you like the state laws or not, there are state laws in place. Some people know that there's a speeding law and they still speed. Some people know that there is a seatbelt law and they don't wear a seatbelt. But as a school district, we're required to follow the state law, whatever that is. So that's the first level for the school district. The second one is the Department of Health's guidelines, recommendations, and requirements. And that includes then the Spokane Regional Health District. And I don't want to go into a lot of information, but I just want to let you know that right now in the state of Washington, there is a lot of conversation at the Department of Health level and the Spokane regional level about metrics, a series of metrics that are being used to determine whether kids are going to be able to be back on campus or not, face-to-face with precautions for teaching and learning. And so that's the second step that the school district has to follow. We don't get a step outside and make our own rules, even though some people would love us to. The third level that we have to follow is that of our insurance company. So the insurance company is basically there to protect us. They're there to protect our students. They're there to protect our staff. They're there to protect our facilities. They're there to protect us as a school district. And that's the third most important level. So the state law, your Department of Health and regional health district requirements, regulations, and your insurance company are the first 3 tiers. And then the fourth one is the local board policy. So local board policy cannot trump the insurance company, the regional health district, or the state of Washington. And as much as I'd love to tell you that we're in complete control of what this school year looks like, that would not be the truth. And I'd love to tell you that we're going to be able to do what we want to do and what we hope to do. But in reality, at any of those levels, either the state level or at the Department of Health or regional level, they could make a decision that is a statewide decision that maybe isn't in agreement here in Freeman. And I want to give you an example. A good friend of mine who's a superintendent in Oregon put together a phenomenal plan with her staff and parents and community that took 6 weeks to put together. It's probably the most detailed, well thought out, collaborative plan to get kids back on campus face-to-face with their staff that I've seen out of about 25 different plans. And if you've been following the news, just within the last couple of days, the governor of the state of Oregon determined that every single school district, rural, urban, small, large, was going to start remotely, regardless of what the local school district had decided, planned for, or wanted to happen. And that could, folks, potentially happen to us. And I do expect that there will be an announcement within the next 48 hours to 72 hours that'll give us an update on what the governor's thinking about schools in the state of Washington. I don't know what he's going to say. I don't know what his answers are going to be, but we are expecting that there is going to be some type of update regarding schools on or around August 1st at the state level. So those are the 4 pieces that are important for us. We're going to follow all of them. We're going to do the right thing.
Ralph, please.
If you could mute yourself, that'd be great. Thank you. And then we're going to do the very best we can to serve the kids and the staff. And we've really come up with 3 basic options as a school district for this next year. The very first one, and the one that we're most hopeful and most optimistic about, is being able to have students on campus for face-to-face learning with staff with whatever the guidelines are going to be. So if the state of Washington allows on-campus face-to-face learning, which the plan currently in place does allow it, as long as you meet the Department of Health regulations and requirements, you can do that as of July 30th. Again, that could change tomorrow, could change in an hour. But as of right now, that is allowed to happen. And with that face-to-face on-campus teaching and learning from preschool through 12th grade here in Freeman, it would require us to follow the Department of Health guidelines. And there's 4 basic tenets that the Department of Health is using. One is students and staff have to come to school sick or safe and healthy, not sick. which means a temperature check, which means face covering, which means the social distancing, which we had asked for 3 feet, and that was denied. It's still at 6 feet. And then the last one is a cohort model where groups of students stay together. So for example, if you take all the 3rd graders and they're with their teacher for math and science and English and social studies, can you cohort those students together for the day with music and art and PE and be able to have the kids walk to the lunchroom and get their lunch, and they might have to potentially come back to the classroom and have lunch in the classroom. We believe we can pull that off. Do we think that we can pull off the 4 tenets at the middle school and the high school? Yes, it's just going to require a lot of creativity, which I'm really confident in the staff at the middle school and the high school and the leadership in both buildings to be able to do that. I haven't missed out on 1 ounce of sleep the last 30 days, knowing that we would be able to put together a plan for the start of this school year. So that's our first hope. That's really what we want to have happen, is to be able to have the kids back on campus here, ready to go with those provisions. If we can't do that, then another option for us is a hybrid option, which would include some time on campus and sometimes with distance learning. And again, we'd have to follow the state and the guidelines from the Department of Health, which could allow us to do that. I'm really struggling as a superintendent, and I know our staff is, about not having all of the kids here on campus. I'm extremely having some difficult times not thinking about not having our elementary kids here on campus. So that's going to be part of our challenge the next 30 days. And again, I'm just letting you know what the 3 options are that we're considering as a district, knowing that it could very well easily be taken out of our hands. And of course, then the 3rd option is a full online virtual learning experience. It won't be what we went through in March till June. It'll be different, it'll be improved, it'll be better, because to be quite honest, our staff is better. Our teachers are better teachers right now than they were back in January and February. And it wasn't perfect, and some of the technology was a little challenging, but thanks to the support of the community here, we feel like we're good to go with our one-to-one initiative. We've got 120 new Chromebooks that are rolling in this summer. And if that's what we have to do, then we have to do it. But again, our first option, our first preference is on campus, face-to-face teaching and learning for all kids, following the guidelines from the Department of Health. Second option would be a hybrid model, some on campus, some distance learning, and then the 3rd option would be the distance learning, kind of in a new and improved, model or version. So with those 3 options, what we have control over is our attitude. What we have control over is the fact that we have great relationships with our families. And, as I've said to a few of you before, we know how to take a punch in Freeman and we can still stay standing. And so I'm feeling really good about that and confident that we're going to be able to pull together a plan. The plan is not going to be for 100% of the people. And I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be. So there are going to be some people that might say, you know what, if you're requiring my kids to wear a mask, I'm not going to send them to school. And some may say, if you don't require a mask, I'm not going to send them to school. And all I can tell you is that we're going to do the very best we can with the information that we have. We're going to follow the state law. We're going to follow the guidelines from the Department of Health. We've got 3 really good options in place. And we're going to have to wait and see what happens the next 2 weeks, because that's when the decision will be made, either for us or by us, regarding what our model is going to be. I also want to just, reiterate for anybody that's on the call that as much as I'd like to tell you we're in complete control of what the school year is going to look like in Freeman, we're not. And so we're going to focus in on the things that we do have control over, which are those relationships, the great partnerships with our family. We've got an experienced, seasoned veteran staff who loves kids. We've got people that know how to work together to serve kids. And we're going to figure it out. I know a lot of you have had questions about different things like, well, what about athletics or clubs or, transportation, nutrition services, preschool. And I'll just quickly kind of tick through each one. And then again, make sure we leave plenty of time for any questions or any things that you've got that are on your mind. So let's tackle transportation. Right now, our fleet is completely ready to go. We've passed our state inspection from the Washington State Patrol. I want to thank Everett Combs and the drivers and Shar for their great work, but our fleet's ready to go. We have a new bus coming in this fall, and so we're confident that we can figure out the guidelines that are required to get the kids safely to and from school on a bus for those kids that need transportation. So for nutrition services, we're prepared. We're ready to go to serve all 870 some students if they're able to be here. And if they're not, let's say we're in a different model, then we're going to be able to provide meals for students that are on free and reduced status only at this point in time. This last spring, we provided about 400 meals a day, which was, almost 40% of the kids in Freeman. If we have to do that again, if kids aren't on campus, then meals are definitely going to be provided for free and reduced students. And for anybody in the gap, we'll work with our local churches to make sure that families don't go without food, because we know that's an important, part. Childcare, even though it's not a requirement, we're planning on offering childcare. And we know that the only kids that don't have to wear a mask, if that's one of the requirements, which as of today it is, if you're up to the age of 5, you do not have to wear a mask. It's not required. But anybody from that age of 5, that kindergarten level up through 12th grade, and all staff have to have the PPE. And we've ordered all that for staff. So we've already we've worked with a couple of local folks right here in Freeman to have masks available. We're going to have parents. We're going to need your help. If kids are going to be required to wear a mask to be on campus, then we're going to need your help to make sure that that happens. Because one of the things that we will not do is we will not put the school district in a situation where we're not meeting the rules or the guidelines because somebody doesn't like them. And I know that's a little tough, word. I just want to be honest and upfront with everybody. We're going to need everybody's cooperation and everybody's help on this in order to follow whatever those guidelines are. But if that's one of the requirements, and they're saying it is to return, I don't want to wear a mask personally. I don't like wearing a mask. It's uncomfortable. I like people to be able to see my face. I want to see their face. But if you're giving me the choice between no kids being here on campus or kids being here on campus, if I'm required to wear a mask so that kids can be on campus, then that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm going to ask each of the staff members to do. So that's just kind of part of it. Athletics has been a really interesting deal. And if you ask Mr. Herda, who's on the call tonight, his world is literally changing daily, if not by the hour. But if you need any additional information that you haven't seen, you can go right to WIAA.com. They've got the seasons now are divvied up into 4 sport seasons. You're probably paying attention, for those of you that love athletics, colleges and professional athletics and high school sports and club sports and everything else across the nation just looks completely different. And so if you need an update from WIAA, just go on their website, check that out. A lot of the seasons have been changed around, and we're going to do the very best we can. Our goal is to get the kids back on campus safe, and we also want to make sure the staff is safe. And so we'll be working closely with the staff to see what that looks like. But the expectation is, whether kids are on campus or not, at the beginning of the school year, all staff will be. That's our expectation. That's our want. Staff wants to be here. It's a better learning environment for kids. If the staff is on campus, they can be in their classrooms. Paras can be here working with teachers. You can collaborate with your colleagues. You can connect with your principal. You can connect with your specialists. Special ed and regular ed can work closer together if you're here on campus. So some people have asked me, well, if the kids aren't returning, are staff going to work from home? And the answer is no. Staff's going to work here. And if we have a medical fragile staff member, just like if we have a medical fragile student, we'll work with that individual, and you just need to communicate with us so we can meet your needs. I think I hopefully I covered most of the key pieces, but one I really want to make sure that we're talking about is special education. So we have about 870 students in Freeman, and for those of you that don't know, we have about 110 students in Freeman that have an individualized education plan, and that's a large number and a really important focus for us as a district. And so we need to continue to figure out how do we meet the needs of the students who have an IEP, whether they're here on campus or whether they're not. And that's something that Jody and her team are going to be working with the principals and the parents on. That was one of the areas that, thank goodness, we were in really good shape in the spring, and we were able to work through some difficulties. You know, as you can imagine, for a teacher, the whole reason that they even got into education is to serve kids. And I know for families, you're hurting because your kids haven't been here. You want your kids to return. And I can just reassure you, the staff is also hurting. You know, they need to and want to see the kids, and they need to be here so that they can have some type of normalcy in the last, 6 months. It just hasn't been very normal really for anyone. And so I just want to just lay that out to you a little bit. If you don't mind, if you do have a question, I'll just have you put it into the chat box. We got a couple of us here kind of spread out in the district office, and would love to tackle, any of your questions. And I will also want to open it up, to our elementary principal, Lisa Phelan, our middle school principal, Jim Straw, and our high school principal, Renee Bailey, if they would like to, if there's anything that they feel that they would like to share, with the group tonight. Certainly going to give them an opportunity to do that. And Lisa, I'm going to start with you just to see if there's anything, and I'm not sure if I have to unmute you or keep this pausing. Lisa, are you still with us? Okay, maybe we'll come back to Lisa. How about Jim? Jim Straw? Anything you'd like to share? Okay, I just got a note here that Jim, Lisa, and Renee were not able to join. They are on FaceTime. So thank you, Chris Herta. Maybe through Chris, we will have, just if any of them would like to share a quick message, with those that are on the call tonight. Chris, if you want to ask them, that would be great. And then we could, hear from them. So any questions? I'm looking at the chat box here. Okay, so here's a great question. So I am at almost at the vulnerable stage, and I want to know if there will be sneeze guards around my desk. I'm expecting our grandbaby in September, and I want to be protected. So this is a great scenario for us to talk about as a district, where we can work with individual staff members around their needs. We have about 65 teachers in Freeman, and if a teacher has a special concern or a special need, they're going to be able to work directly with their principal, and we're going to do everything we can to help accommodate that teacher or that classified staff member or whoever it is, so that they are not only safe, but they feel really good about being here and about working with kids. There is a state provision that if you do have if you're over 60, or if you have a health concern, that you can get a provision. And we certainly, because that's a state law and we want to do the right thing, we will follow that to the T. So yes, we will be accommodating staff on an individualized basis as they need it. So that's a great question. Thank you. Other questions from the chat here? Will there be a music program this year? Thank you, Jill. That is a great question. our plan is yes. Is it going to look different? Are we going to have to get really creative? And maybe it's going to be done in a different way? Probably. But yes, Joe, we really want to have music. We know that fine and performing arts are an important part of a student's experience, but we're going to have to figure out how we'll do that within the requirements if the students are allowed to be on campus. And again, folks, I just hope you're hearing my message. We want to start the school year with all the kids here. We're willing to do what it takes to do that safely and follow the rules. And we feel like we can make it happen if we're allowed to do it. We just hope we're going to get the chance to be able to do it. And I'm just praying and keeping my fingers crossed every day that we get to have the kids back here. Absolutely. So we'd love to have music and art and drama and all of the classes. They just may need to look a little different, and we hope that you can, be a little flexible on that one. Here's just a message, from the admin team. So thanks, Chris, and thank you to Lisa and Renee and Jim for chiming in. You can see that as an admin team, their first priority and hope is to have the kids here full time. They'll work with the leadership team and all the staff to do what is best for the kids and keep them safe. And we will be sure to communicate regularly and as needed. You're going to hear regular, consistent communication from us as a district. Don't be surprised if at 2:30 in the afternoon, all of a sudden the governor pulls together a press conference and makes a decision. I just don't want anybody to be surprised that might happen, because it actually might. And if you remember back to what happened in March, we were actually really ready to go with a great plan that we put in place over the weekend to get our kids to spring break. And literally within, an hour's notice, the governor came on and said that all schools were going to be closing down and going virtual for the remainder of the year. So just being flexible and being adaptable is really, really important. So here's a great question. For kids who have an IEP, if we go to the worst case scenario of full-time distance learning, will there be an opportunity to schedule sessions with the specialist for an in-person, face-to-face therapy opportunity? The Department of Health is currently working on that very situation and has told us that there will be some flexibility allowed for kids that have an IEP that looks a little different than what it looked like in the spring. They haven't given us the rules, but they're really trying hard to allow individual students to be able to be back on campus for those really important services the kids just can't get online. And so we're hoping that they'll give us some flexibility with that. Yes, we want that to happen. Obviously, we want the kids here for sure. That's goal number one. But if they can't be here and they allow us to have students come on campus, then yeah, we want to make sure that does happen. Okay, Rachel, if option one happens, are there remote learning options for students that don't have a medical necessity to be at home, but we would prefer them to be at home? Well, that's going to be the $1 million question. That's going to really probably unfold over the next couple of weeks. We would love to have that as an option. That's going to require us to pivot a little bit differently. But we also know that there are some families that just maybe quite aren't ready, to send their kids back, even if, they're wearing a mask and social distancing. And so that's one thing that we're going to be working with the leadership team and our teachers on. How could we make that happen? And can we make it happen? And I know, again, some folks may decide to homeschool their kids. Some folks may decide to keep their kids at home. We want your kids here. I hope you know that. We want them to be safe, and we're really going to try, if option one happens, to be able to do that. But we've got a little work to do on that, to be quite honest, even though we've got the technology. So that's a good question. Yeah, let's see. Let's look at the chat box and see there's other questions that are coming up. And I'm gonna, as we're looking back at that, I'm gonna have Chris Herda, our athletic director, who's online with us, just to see if he'd like to share anything from an athletic activities update, Chris, that's new. Are you still with us, Chris?
Yeah, I'm here, Randy. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can. Thanks for joining us tonight. So your world has been very interesting, and a lot of questions about athletics. Anything you'd like to add I didn't share that you think would be helpful?
Well, I'll share it, and then it'll all probably change by 10 a.m. tomorrow, so it doesn't. No, the biggest thing you talked about, the 4 seasons. We have a Northeast A-League meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. We're doing a Zoom meeting to talk about that first season, which basically for us is cross country. I think it's very likely that cross country is going to be moved to season 3, which takes place in March. So that we're going to discuss a couple items there, scheduling, all that stuff. For those parents that are watching that have middle school kids, there really has not been much said at all regarding middle school. I think, the WIA has kind of went through their priorities, and middle school's kind of been left out. So we've been told that communication is going to come about middle school soon, but I will do my best to communicate with everyone, and we'll go from there.
That's great, Chris. Thank you. And if you just joined us, if you could please mute your phone for us, we're able to open this laptop. You can mute your phone, please, if you could. So thank you for muting your phone. And we also have this call recorded. So if you weren't able to get in, the call has been recorded. It'll be posted on our website, and you'll be able to catch the very first part. But since several of you did just join us again, we kind of covered the fact that we have 3 options for the school year: face-to-face, live, in-person learning with meeting the requirements. The second one is a hybrid model where some kids are on campus, some distance learning. And then the third one, of course, is, having a distance learning model. So those are our 3 options right now for the district. And with that, obviously, we have to follow the state guidelines, the Department of Health, regulations and requirements, and then also what our insurance company, will allow. I want to read this comment from Neil Fuchs in case you didn't see it. We got a dog joining us tonight. As one of the board members, we want all the parents and staff to know that we are here to support you and all the kids. If you know someone who didn't make it on the call, let them know that we have it recorded and we'll post it, and it'll be posted on the website. From the board, we want to thank every parent and staff member for all you have done during this challenging times. And then thank you, Nat, for the nice message back. So it looks like we maybe have Lisa and Jim and Renee who have been able to maybe now get admitted on here. We got a lot of people on the call, which is great. We can't ever get this many people to a board meeting, but we can get them to a football game. So it's nice to have this many people. If you just joined us, if you could please mute your self, that would be great. Lisa, is there anything that you'd like to share from the elementary if you were able to jump on there?
Harper, can you help me?
Okay, maybe she wasn't able to jump on there. Jim Straw from the middle school. Jim, you able to hear us okay?
You bet.
Yeah, anything you'd like to share with folks around the middle school?
No, just that we are, continuing to monitor this and work on it. And we're going to take the direction that we get from the state and from above us, and we're going to make the best possible decision we can for all of our kids and our community.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And I know you've been working really hard, this summer to put some things in place, for kids to be able to be back here on campus, as Lisa and Renee and Chris have. So appreciate that. What do you think is the burning question, Jim, for an incoming 6th grade student who maybe has never been at the middle school before, and this is going to be first experience at the middle school?
I don't know if I can specifically talk for a 6th grader, but I know from the staff side, it's we want to figure out a way to get to know these kids as quickly as we can. And one of the advantages that we had last spring really was that we'd had 7 months with our kids to get to know them and build relationships. And we're gonna have to be creative this year because we won't have that, we may not have that opening opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. And I just want to build on something that Jim mentioned. You know, one of the considerations, you know, if we're allowed to, is we may do some reverse parent-teacher conferences. I want to have us really be thinking about, you know, outside of the box on this. We're not going to be able to tackle this challenge if kids can't be on campus, you know, the very first day, you know, with the old way of thinking. And so we're going to really need to open our minds up and take a look at some new opportunities, kind of like we did in March to get through the rest of the school year. So somebody here said, so what is the plan? And I don't know what that exactly means. But if you weren't able to join us earlier, we did mention that we have 3 options that we're looking at for this next school year. If you did miss the beginning of the call, we've recorded this call. It'll be on the website. And the first day of school is scheduled basically at the end of this month. If you remember, we tie our school day in to kind of 3 days, then 4 days around Labor Day, and then 5 days. And so we feel like that's an advantage for us to be able to have the kids back on campus with the way we start the school year. Mrs. Bailey, is there anything that you'd like to share with folks that might have high schoolers?
Well, I don't think I have anything to share other than echoing Jim's sentiments. Let me turn off. Sorry, I'm still on FaceTime with the team, so it's giving me a little feedback. Okay, so I was chatting with Lisa, and she wanted to make sure that I reiterated to the community that she and I have been attending the Valley School District's meetings every other Thursday and just sharing ideas with Central Valley, East Valley, West Valley, and that we've kind of been working together to try to figure out how we can support the Valley community as a whole. So in terms of those of you who might have a first-year high schooler, we're still going to do our very best to try to get them acclimated to the high school so that when we do come back for face-to-face, if we don't get to start that way, they have had an opportunity to meet teachers and figure out their way around the building and learn how to use lockers and all that sort of thing. So we're going to get really creative like we always do and just make the best of it. So that's about all I have to share.
That's great, Renee. I appreciate that. And I want to build off for just a second something that Renee mentioned. You know, we've been working very closely as a group of ESD superintendents and principals. So if you're familiar with ESD 101, it's the Educational Service District 101. And it serves 59 school districts from basically Northport on the Canadian border all the way down to Asotin region and everything in between. So we've had weekly calls at the state level, weekly calls with Spokane Regional Health District, weekly calls with our superintendent group. And what Renee mentioned was that she and Lisa have been part of a collaborative effort with other principals in the Valley. So West Valley, East Valley, Central Valley, and Freeman work very closely together on collaborative plans. Even though CV's got 14,500 kids and we have 875, 90% of the issues are the same. And so we tackle those together, and then you just end up, you know, kind of taking the other 10% and making it work. One of the questions that I asked of the Regional Health District, which I think is important to share with everybody on tonight's call, is if there are metrics that are going to be used to determine if you can be on campus face-to-face. If you could please mute yourself, that would be great. Thank you. If you just joined the call and you could mute yourself, we'd really appreciate it, because there's feedback and people can't hear. Yeah, a couple of you have asked about participation limit. So with Zoom, we're limited.
Got it going?
So somebody had asked about the participation limit of 100 people, and that's what we're allowed to with the Zoom. That's why we've recorded the call, and we've told folks numerous times. And if you're just joining us, this call is recorded. It'll be on the district website. You'll be able to listen to it in its entirety. And it'll be shared, so you'll be able to go back through the whole thing. But back to this question I had of the regional health district. So there's about 6,400 people that live in Freeman. And even though every single student in Freeman doesn't live in Freeman, we cannot be excluded from Spokane County's numbers. So when the Department of Health and the regional health district determine their metrics, which is how Oregon just decided to basically take the entire state and go virtually, whatever those metrics are, it's going to be the Spokane County metric. It will not be the Freeman School District metric. So there might not be one single COVID case amongst 6,400 people that live in Freeman, but we are not going to be excluded from the Spokane County count. That's how they'll determine whether we are able to do the face-to-face by the Department of Health. And I think that's an important thing for people to keep in mind if you hear down the road that the Department of Health or the Spokane Regional Health District is putting together metrics and what the numbers are on allowing students back on campus. I was a lot more optimistic at the beginning of this week than I am now about the return on campus face-to-face, but I'm still optimistic, and we still have some time to see what the numbers look like. But again, we'll be prepared for our three options, Brian Blood, face-to-face with the regulations. We're going to also have a hybrid option, and we're also going to have a virtual option. And we'd love to not be lumped in, but that's how the regional health districts do it. Other questions that might have come up in the chat room? If face-to-face is not viable, if you could mute yourself.
Whoops. Can I ask you a question? What are we going to do for secretaries to protect them? And also, what are we going to do for the teachers that have young ones, or even no matter what their age is, just to protect them?
Well, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the call, that basically the first paramount thing is to make sure that all students and staff are safe. So whatever that's going to look like for secretaries or bus drivers or teachers or principals, it's going to be basically the same approach, and then you individualize it for any individual staff member who has more needs or needs a little extra protection. And for staff, I just encourage you to make sure you're talking with your principal or your supervisor if you feel like you need some additional support or some additional precautionary, measures. The masks, temperature checks, the attestation by parents, could be face shields, the social distancing. There are a number of requirements that the Department of Health is going to require if kids are allowed to be back on campus for face-to-face learning, and we'll be following those requirements. And if people need a little extra precaution for that, then that's something I need to have you communicate with your supervisor on.
Randy, Mr. Spearing here.
Yeah, and we'll take one more live question, and then if you don't mind, we'll have you guys mute yourselves and put the questions in the chat box. Go ahead, Ken.
I was just wondering if we do in fact go back, will the number of students be cut in half that would be present in each classroom? And if that's the case, would we double the amount of classes, or would we meet half the amount of times in order to accommodate all the students?
All of the things that you just mentioned are on the table as a possibility, Ken. And for those of you that don't know, Ken Spearing is an art teacher for us at both the middle school and high school level. And at this point in time, we just have to be flexible, keep our options open. And we need to have not just the kids and the parents, but also the teachers and the staff be thinking that we may be delivering instruction and teaching and learning completely different than the traditional ways that we've done outside of the last couple of months. So that is one of the options, Ken, is to look at a hybrid model, but we also have to make sure that we are following the cohort group, which is one of the 4 criterion set up by the Department of Health. So good question. Yeah, you're welcome. You're very welcome, Jesse. Let's see, we've got, will teachers be allowed to teach from their rooms, and will teachers be available for help? Yes and yes. As I mentioned earlier in the call, we are expecting and wanting and needing all staff to be on campus, regardless of whether the kids are here face-to-face or whether we're doing a hybrid model or a virtual learning model. Those are our 3 options, but we feel very strongly that teachers teach best from their classrooms. They can collaborate the best when they're together. They have access to the resources and the materials. Nutrition services is going to be here preparing meals. Secretaries are going to be on campus supporting staff and being able to work with parents and kids. You know, we're going to have bus drivers. You know, hopefully we'll be able to transport the kids. And, you know, so we're going to just do our very, very best. Jesse, as someone who has a family member who is in a high-risk group, will distance learning be limited at all, or will it be open to any family that needs it? Thank you. Yes, we are going to try really hard to be flexible enough that if you choose not to send your child here for, let's say, the first month or 6 weeks or whatever, if you're still a little concerned and we're here on campus face-to-face with the precautions, that we can still meet the needs, but it's gonna take a little work on our part. I think we've got a good plan. We're gonna have to just be really flexible, but we're sure gonna try to be able to do that. And I know some folks may decide to homeschool, you know, their kids, and we certainly understand that, you know, as well. And I know that you don't want to choose between a terminal family member and my kid's future in education. So you as a family have lots of options. You know, you can certainly have your kids enrolled in Freeman. You know, there are online programs that are available, some with Freeman, some are not. You can homeschool your child. There are multiple options for families. And at least based on the conversations that I've had with a lot of families, a lot of kids, a lot of parents over the last 6 weeks, the vast majority of families want to have their students return to Freeman. And some are still a little concerned about coming back, and we totally understand that, and we totally respect that. And so you'll just have to make that decision for your family. And the cohort group is like a group of 4th graders that stays together the whole time. So let's say that your 4th grader comes on campus, you brought them to school, or maybe they rode the bus, or however they got here. Basically, you know, that 4th grade group of students, 22, 24 students, let's say, is with a teacher throughout the entire day. And maybe they go to music, and maybe they go to art, and maybe, you know, they go into the lunchroom for lunch. We're going to have to keep that group of kids together so that that group of 3rd graders, or that group of 5th graders, or maybe that group of kids in a middle school English class are more together. And we can do cohorts at the middle school and the high school. We're just going to maybe have to change the schedule a little bit. And one of the things that the Regional Health District is currently considering is that a seating chart could be a potential part for a cohort. And what I mean by that is that, let's say that your son or daughter is in a middle school or a high school class, and they are in the same class with a group of kids for 3 or 4 days of their 3 or 4 periods of their schedule. And those 3 or 4 students sit together in a clump, like 4 desks together at one table. That can be considered a cohort group. And if that's allowed, boy, that gives us a lot of flexibility as a district. You know, I'm also encouraging our staff to be thinking about, you know, there's a lot of space on this campus. We have 52 acres, and I know weather's going to come into play at some point in time, but we do have the football field. We do have the baseball field. We do have gymnasiums. We do have multi-purpose rooms. We do have tennis courts. We have a lot. We do have a transportation co-op conference room. We have a lot of places on our campus that aren't a traditional classroom, and we're going to use every single one of them if we need to support the kids. So let me see here. There's a couple more really good questions here. Childcare. Yes, our plan is to offer childcare. That is our plan as of right now. Even though the state's telling us we don't have to do it, we feel like this is a really important service for our families. Lisa and Courtney and their team have put together a great plan, and we got a chance to practice some of the distancing and requirements this summer. So we feel confident that we can offer childcare for this next year. And again, we're going to need your flexibility a little bit. Let's see here. I'm not sure. There's a lot of good questions here, but I want to tackle this question about the protocol if a child gets sick or if a staff member gets sick. So the Department of Health, which is the overarching body for the state of Washington, then has regional health districts. So we have the Spokane Regional Health District. Spokane Regional Health District has been great to work with and has been very flexible and very supportive of Freeman. And so they are coming up with what I would consider some very common sense rules and requirements if a kiddo or a staff member gets sick. And that's why it's so important that whether it's a temperature check or not sending your kid to school if they're sick, or not coming to school if you're sick as a staff member, you know, wearing a mask, social distancing, the cohort groups, whatever it might be, you know, that is really going to be those 4 major tenets. And if the regional health district puts together the plan that they've proposed around when a child does get sick, then you can hopefully contain that within a small group of students. So we're not going to have K-5 elementary kids in the gymnasium for a PACE Character Awards assembly, unfortunately. Most likely we're not going to have an open house with 900 kids here and 2,000 adults, you know, at the end of August. I wish we did, and I'd love it if we could, but most likely the large groups are probably not going to happen. We may not even end up having full staff meetings with all the staff together. We're really going to have to take a look at this cohort group, and we're going to rely on the Department of Health to give us the boundaries and kind of the guidelines for that. So that's a great question, Jill. Thank you for that. Can we keep extended families together? Well, we're going to try. We're sure going to try. You know, a lot of that's going to depend on what grade level they're in and what their needs are. And but we're sure going to try. Again, folks, our goal is to have everybody here on campus. And I know that may be a little optimistic, but we're going to be doing everything we can until they tell us we can't. And if they tell us we can't, then we'll go to either option 2 or 3. But there isn't a single person in Freeman that does not want your child here for the first day of school. I'm just telling you. And to be honest with you, I'm a little concerned about the social, emotional well-being of the adults if the kids are not able to be here on campus, which is a big reason why we need to have the adults here, because at least they'll be able to have some type of adult interaction and not total isolation, just in case kids cannot be here. We're not planning to have tutors for kids who cannot attend. Thank you for all the compliments about the work. Really proud of our crew that's taking care of the facilities. I don't know that our campus has ever looked better. And then a lot of questions about IEP, but as I mentioned before, we think we're going to get some guidelines to maybe provide some additional support for kiddos that have an IEP, even if they don't allow us to tackle option 1. Asking about kiddos that are enrolled in pre-K program and not in need of childcare is the preschool education program under the same guidelines as K-12. Yeah, that makes sense, Rachel. So the pre-K does have some different rules. And one of the major rule differences that you're not required to wear a mask up to the age of 5. And some groups are recommending it and some aren't. So there are a little different groups. You know, and we're going to keep working hard for you guys. You know, we're in this, you know, we're committed. We want to do the very, very best for each of your children and your families. And, you know, we're not perfect and we never have been. We weren't perfect before this. We're not going to be perfect after it. But I can just guarantee you that everybody is going to give 100%. and we just need to have everybody kind of lean in, you know, and help out. Regarding the middle school or the high school kids and how they're going to be grouped, that's a challenge for our team at the high school and at the middle school, but I know they're up for it, and I know they're very creative, and I know that their minds have been kind of whirling about, okay, well, what does this look like if I'm in a hybrid model for middle school and high school kids? Folks, it could look different across the different levels. So don't be shocked, or if somebody could mute their phone, that'd be great. If you haven't muted your phone, if you could do that, that would be great. So back to the grouping of the kids. We're just going to try our very, very best, Tisha, to be able to put those kids together as often as possible. And what I was going to say is, don't be surprised if all of the K through 5 kids are here every day, if we're allowed to be able to do it. And the middle school and the high school kids might be on a different schedule. And I wish I could tell you that we're all going to be on the same schedule, but we may not be able to. And that's where we're just going to need you to be really flexible and, you know, be able to just kind of lean in with us. Thanks for the nice compliments. We appreciate the great questions. We're going to bring this to a close. Again, I just want to summarize really quick in case you came in late. This whole meeting's been recorded. It's going to be available on our district website. We basically are going to follow those 4 tenets I mentioned to you, which are state law, the Department of Health, Regional Health District, our insurance company, and our board policies. We have 3 really, really, really good solid options right now. The first one is, and the one we want to be able to pull off, is we want to have all the kids on campus following the precautions. And the Department of Health says that basically temperature checks, attestation to good health, face guards, social distancing, cohorts. That's the criterion that they're using. And if we're not able to do face-to-face on campus, then we have 2 other options. One is to be able to do a hybrid model, and then certainly the third one is the virtual option, which will be an improved version of what we had in the spring. So our hope is to, you know, have an update for you here in a couple of weeks. We're going to have another meeting. Our hope is to maybe we can open it up. Maybe Zoom will let us do more than the 100 participants, but we'll be sure to, you know, have that recorded and available. If you do have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to your admin, you know, reach out to myself, and we'll just continue to keep communicating and doing the very best we can. And we hope we get to have everybody back here on campus at the beginning of the year. So thank you for joining us. Enjoy a beautiful night, and have a great rest of your week.